here we go. These are the needles, and I've kind of set them up on this cloth so you could see them better. These two are chenilles. So we have an 18 and a 24. Chenille needles, like lots of needles, come in many other different sizes, but these are the ones that I typically use. An 18 I use with a size 3 thread. And I want to show you different number 3 threads because they can vary a little bit. So this is a 3-weight thread. This is a soft cotton. It's painter's thread. I love these threads. I love the thread colors. Now remember, I'm going to use that with a size 18. This is Steph Francis, and it's a pearl 3, also a 3 thread. And you can see that the weight, it's very, very close to the same in diameter. This one looks by the naked eye a little bit thicker. I don't know that it actually is. It could be just be that I'm looking at it and it feels that way, but it may not be. This is a painter's also pearl 3. It's a pearl cotton. And to my mind, it looks a little bit thicker than the Steph Francis 3. But also it's a painter's, as is the soft cotton, which is this one. And that looks to be close to the same. But all of these are considered a 3-weight, and they all say they're a 3-weight. So I would use a size 18 chenille needle. Now, these are Milners. And the Milner needles, you just have to remember the numbers because they make no sense. The largest Milner's is a 15. This middle Milner's, these two, this one and this one, are a size 1. So you have the 15 is the largest, and I believe Sue Spargo is the only one who actually carries this particular needle, which is for GIMP and your largest threads. The number 1 is the next in line. This is a tulips. It has an elongated eye. It's my favorite of the ones. And this is just a golden eye Milner's. These are for wrap stitches. Chenilles are for non-wrap. A wrap stitch is a bouillon knot, a French knot, colonial knot, drizzle stitch, any of the stitches where you're wrapping around the needle, you're going to use a Milner's because you want it to be able to go over the eye of the needle. Do you see how the eye, it doesn't expand? The chenille, the eye is wider. Makes it harder to do a wrap stitch. These are good for any non-wrap. A non-wrap stitch is a back stitch, a running stitch, a slip detached chain, a chain stitch. Any of the stitches where you're not wrapping thread around a needle and pulling the needle through is a non-wrap. And for those I use the chenille. So size 3. This is also a size 3. Now this is one of my favorite threads. It's a spun silk. It's called 2.5/1 spun silk by Steph Francis. And to my mind, this is also a size 3, or as close to a 3, closer to a 3 than not. The other one that I think of as a size 3 is this one, the 3600 rayon, also by Steph Francis. It gives a real sheen to it. It's very pretty. And I think it's closer to a 3 than a 5, although it might be, I'll have to pull, but it seems to be more like a 3 than a 5, right? This is a 3. This is Steph Francis Pearl 3, and that seems very close in diameter. For all of these, I would use an 18 chenille or number 1 Milner. As I said, this one I rarely use, but I do use it if I'm using something like a cord, like GIMP, or something like a boucle, a silk boucle from Steph Francis, the texture selection. I might also use this one for the viscose ribbon, which is quite thick. Okay, so those are the 3 weights. Now this is a size 5. The sparkle chainette, I was going to say, is closer to a 5, and I think it is. This is the sparkle chainette, this one, and this one is the multi-sparkle. All of these are Steph Francis, and I think they come closest to a 5-weight. A 5-weight thread. I'm going to use an 18 chenille like I do the 3-weight, and I'm going to use a number 1 Milner's, just like I do with the 3-weight. This is also a 5-weight. It's the Silk Pearl 5-weight from Steph Francis. And so when I take it out, you can see how close they all are in the diameter of the thread, even though it's done by weight. Now this one is Steph Francis Pearl 8. It's a pearl cotton. The thick mercerized cotton from Steph Francis is closest to an 8-weight. These I'm going to use my 24 chenille or my number 3 Milner's. So the Milner's, a 15 is the largest, then comes the 1, and then comes the 3. Makes no sense. 3, then 1, then 15 are the sizes. There are a lot of different sizes for Milner's. You can get them in something that's called, I think it's 3 to 9 Milner's, and those are really tiny. So you've got something like this, which they're calling a 3, right? 3. It looks a little smaller than my 3, but never mind. And then you've got this, which is a 9, and you can see how small that is, right? I'm going to have a hard time threading anything but maybe an applique cotton thread or something like that. If I had a 20-weight cotton thread, I might do it on this. Typically, if I'm doing a cotton applique, I'm going to use my number 11 short darner. I love the number 11 short darner. It's got an elongated eye, and it's great for applique. Then there are needles for beading, which of course are even smaller. There's sashiko needles, which are for, doing sashiko. This is a sashiko needle. But these are the ones that I go to more often than anything else. So if you're just starting out, don't worry about all the others. I would just get one of each of these, a number 18 chenille, a number 24 chenille. If you're doing very fine thread, you could do a chenille that's like a 26 chenille. There's also a 20 or a 22, which is going to be somewhere in between the 18 and the 24. This 1800 rayon is closest to a number 8. So the thick mercerized cotton from Steph Francis, the 1800 rayon from Steph Francis, and any of the Pearl 8s are all going to be about an 8 in weight, which means 24 chenille and number 3 Milner's. The other one from Steph Francis is this one. It's a spun silk with flames. I treat it as though it's an 8-weight. It's actually a bit thinner. It goes from an 8-weight to probably a 12-weight or even under. It has nub to it, and you can see how thin it gets here. It's a lot of fun to play with this thread. There are lots and lots of other threads. This is a ribbon floss from Painters. I would use an 18 chenille or a number 1 Milner's. A few of my other go-to favorite threads. I did a video on my top 10 favorite threads, and I'll put that in the upper right corner of this video, just so you can see. All of these are mentioned, I think, most of them. In any case, this is from the Thread Gatherer. It's an Oriental linen. She's out of stock of it at this time, but she has a big order in, and will be bringing it, and we'll be putting it on her site hopefully in the next month or two. When she does, I'll do a video on the Oriental linen. It's one of my favorites. It's got a linen and silk twist to it, and it takes the dye differently, so it creates this kind of heathered effect, which I just love. The Oriental linen is, I think, closer to a 5-weight than anything else. It's hard to say because it has a twist to it. I think it's somewhere between a 3-weight and a 5-weight. And so I would use an 18 chenille. I try to get it on a 1. I usually can get it on a Tulips 1 Milner's. Then there is this one, which is shepherd silk. Also, these are all from the Thread Gatherer. This is also, this is a 5 weight. It's actually closer to a 3 weight, the shepherd silk. And then we have the silk pearl. This used to go by the name of silken pearl. She has it in a 5 or an 8 weight. This one's called the 5 weight, but I don't know. I think it's in between a 5 and an 8, honestly. This is a 5. This is the silk pearl. And I treat it like it's an 8 weight. I tend to use it, if I can, I'll put it on a 24 chenille. And I use either a number 1 Milner's. Usually I use the Tulips number 1 Milner's, but sometimes if I can get it on the number 3, I'll do that. I try to get the thread on the smaller thread, the smaller needle if possible, but if it's pulling or if there's a lot of twist to it, it'll cause it to really twist up and cause me problems, so then I'll just go with a bigger needle. This is the Thread Gatherer Aurora, and it is closest, I think, to, it's somewhere between a 3 and a 5 again. It's kind of like the Oriental linen. I treat it like it's a 5. I use an 18 chenille and a number 1 Milner's. I always can get it on a number 1 Milner's. And then you have things like this. This is from the Thread Gatherer. It's a silk ribbon, but there's lots of companies that do silk ribbon. Both Painters does a beautiful silk ribbon. You can get it in this is a 4 millimeter. It comes 7 millimeter is wider. 4 millimeter. I typically use a 4 millimeter. This is the width of it. And I'll use this on a 24 chenille. Whether I'm doing a wrap or not, it goes on a 24 chenille. I've shown, I believe I have a ribbon video that I did, and I'll put that in the upper right corner. So that's silk ribbon. And then you have this, which is the Steph Francis Texture Selection. And in this, you have things like this chenille. Now, you can also get this in a silk chenille. And this, I always use the 15 because it frays. And if I try to get it on this, which I can sometimes, it's going to just rip this apart. And since this is such a delicate thread anyway, unless you're couching it, if you're doing anything else, use just a short little strand of it. I wouldn't use more than 8 to 12 inches because you're not going to get more than a few stitches from it before the whole thing is going to fray on you, and you're going to have to toss it. In addition, there is a viscose ribbon, which you can also buy these separately. This is the viscose ribbon. These are a lot of fun. It's a hollow knitted thread material. You can actually thread up a needle with this chenille and stick it inside the hollow of this to make it into kind of a rounded thing, and then couch it or ruche it and create something else, which is kind of fun. I did a video on the viscose ribbon, and I'll put that in the upper right corner as well. This, I tend to use definitely an 18 chenille, and then the 15. If I can get it on the tulips with the elongated, I will do so. Those are most of the threads that I tend to use. There are, of course, lots of other threads, lots of other specialty threads to play with and have fun with. But typically, these are the needles that I use, and these are the threads that I typically use. I hope this was helpful. And if you have any questions, don't forget to comment in the comment section. I'm always open to hearing suggestions, thoughts, differences of opinion. Tell me what you like to use and what threads do you enjoy using? What needles do you typically use? Until next time, here's to stitching together.